Call this meeting to order. Hello everyone. Welcome to meeting number 7 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Veteran Affairs. Conformément à la motion adoptée,
Pursuant to the motion adopted on the 18th of September 2025, the committee is meeting for a briefing by the Minister of Veterans Affairs and representatives of the department. Thank you. Welcome. The Minister will be with us until 4:30 p.m. and department representatives will be with us till 5:30 p.m. Before we continue, I would like to ask all participants in person to review the guidelines written on the cards on the table. These measures are in place to help prevent audio feedback and acoustic shocks and to protect the health and safety of all participants, including interpreters. To ensure that the meeting runs smoothly, I would like to give some instructions to you, dear Minister and witnesses here present, and all members of Parliament. Before speaking, wait until I call your name. If you're participating via video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your microphone, and please mute yourself when you are not speaking. As for interpretation, for those on Zoom, you can choose between French, English, or the floor at the bottom of your screen. For those in the room, you can use the headset and select the desired channel. Let me remind you that all comments from members and witnesses must go through the chair.
if you wish to speak, please raise your hand, and for members on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. The clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best as we can. J'aimerais maintenant continuer.
I would like to continue and welcome our witnesses. Let me acknowledge Honorable Jill McKnight, MP, Minister of Veteran Affairs. At the Department of Veteran Affairs, we have Ms. Christina McDonnell, Acting Deputy Minister, Stephen Harris, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Service Delivery, Amy Meunier, Assistant Deputy Minister, Commemoration and Public Affairs. Via video conference, Pierre Tercier, Assistant Deputy Minister, Chief Financial Officer and Corporate Services, and Mitch Freeman, Acting Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic Policy, Planning and Performance, joining us via video conference.
I would like to invite Minister to start. You have, I do believe, 5 minutes, and then we'll start a round of questions.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone.
Inviting me to share an update on the work of Veterans Affairs Canada. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the unceded ancestral territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. It's a pleasure to be with the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs for the first time as the Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence. Colleagues, merci de votre engagement.
Colleagues, thank you for your ongoing commitment to the well-being of Canada's veterans and their families. All Canadians benefit from the contributions and sacrifices made by those who defend our freedom in times of war, armed conflict, and peace. And we remain truly grateful to them.
That it is our collective responsibility to ensure those who have selflessly served our country receive the support they need and the recognition they deserve. During my first few months in this portfolio, I've had the privilege of meeting with veterans and Canadian Armed Forces members across the country. These invaluable conversations have deepened my understanding of the impact of our programs and services. They have reinforced for me how essential it is that we listen to and consider the input from veterans to best match our benefits and services with their needs, and how vital it is that we consider the perspectives of the families that support our veterans, as we know no veteran serves alone. My priority as Minister is to ensure that VAC's programs and supports adapt to the evolving needs of the modern veterans. Today, the average age of release from CAF is 34, significantly younger than in the nation's past. Military service has also evolved, from fighting for freedom in the Middle East to working with our allies to promote peace and global stability and supporting other countries as they fight to maintain sovereignty. These are some of the missions of today. Disaster relief and humanitarian aid are becoming increasingly important as our Canadian Armed Forces protect Canadians at home while helping our neighbours. These experiences equip our modern veterans with new skills and present them and us with new challenges. As Minister, I'm focused on continuing to improve the way in which VAC's benefits and services are delivered to our veterans, expanding the National Veterans Employment Strategy to empower veterans in the post-service career of their choice, and meaningfully recognizing Canada's veterans for their service both in conflict and in peace. Ensuring that Canada's veterans receive benefits and supports in a timely, accessible, and responsive manner will always be a top priority for me and our government. As we increase efficiencies, I'm pleased to report that the implementation of the MyVac account has seen significant uptake, with almost 2/3 of veteran clients using it in the past 12 months. 92% of users report improved communication with Veterans Affairs Canada. Further, we are responding to the emerging needs of modern veterans, including in the area of mental health. The mental health benefit for veterans provides immediate access to treatments for conditions like PTSD, depression, and anxiety without administrative barriers. The health and well-being of our veterans is a responsibility that extends to supporting them through their post-service transition and reintegration to the civilian workforce. In 2024, the National Veteran Employment Strategy launched as a first step towards supporting the more than 7,200 CAF members who release annually. In collaboration with the private sector, I will implement an expanded strategy to directly connect our veterans with employers and entrepreneurial opportunities. A core responsibility of Veterans Affairs is the meaningful recognition and commemoration of service and sacrifice of all veterans. VAC is actively working to increase awareness for the modern-day veteran, including through the department's educational offerings in schools. By helping young people learn and better understand who our service members are, what their service entails, and its impacts, it is my hope that we can further inspire generations towards service in the Canadian Armed Forces. Our commemorative efforts must also evolve to reflect the increasing diversity of the CAF. I'm encouraged by the work here, including the work here at ACVA, to increase awareness around the contributions of Black, Indigenous, women, and 2S LGBTQI+ veterans. As we move forward, we will continue considering these unique perspectives. I thank the many individuals and groups who have shared their lived experience and whose input and work is helping us to modernize the work of Veterans Affairs Canada. Merci. Maintenant, je suis ravie.
Thank you. I look forward to answering your questions now.
Thank you very much, Minister. So we'll start with our first round, 6 minutes each member. I will invite Mr. Richards for the first 6 minutes.
Hi, Minister. You, in your opening remarks, you referenced the Veterans Employment Strategy that your government launched in June of 2024, so about 16 months ago. Can you tell me how many more veterans are employed since June of 2024?
In the time that I've been with Veterans Affairs Canada, we have been working to roll out this program, to build engagement, to ensure that we are working on connecting the skills that veterans are releasing with.
So I have zero doubt about any of that. I'm sure you're doing everything that you within your strategy. What I'd like to know is what the results are. How many more veterans are employed? Has veteran unemployment reduced?
So at this moment, we are in the process of rolling the strategy out to make those connections so that we
sorry.
can track for that
I
information.
only have a limited amount of time, so I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're telling me that 16 months in, you're just starting to roll out the strategy. You have no way to tell us if there's been results in 16 months?
There has been results in terms of the engagement of employers.
Okay.
There
but
has
what
been
about the result in terms of concrete, like how many veterans are employed? Because that's the end of the day. If an employment strategy should be about having more veterans employed, should it not?
very much so,
Do we
and
know
as
how
you
many
can
more
imagine, collecting that information will take time because we will need to connect with the veterans.
When would you be able to get back to the committee to tell us a number?
We will continue to share information as it becomes available.
Okay, what about with your veterans homelessness strategy? That was introduced in April of 2023, 2.5 years ago now. Do you know how many homeless veterans there were in 2023 versus how many there are now? I would hope you're not still rolling that one out. That's 2.5 years.
That program has been moving forward, and simply put, one homeless veteran is too many. As you mentioned, that program has been rolling out in conjunction with the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure.
So do we know what the results are from that? Do we know how, like, the number of homeless veterans now compared to what it was in 2023 when it was introduced?
In the last data that we have from the census was in 2021. We will see new information following the 2026 census. Okay. I can speak to...
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I only have a limited amount of time. April 2023, you put out a strategy. 2.5 years later, in late 2025, you're telling me the best data you have is from 2021. So you have no way of knowing whether what you're doing is working. Like, if you're going to measure success, don't you need to know what you've accomplished? You don't even know your starting point, let alone where you are now. So perhaps we'll move on then, since we don't seem to have any information there. Let me ask you about services. So in the time your government's been in office, in 10 years, budget has more than doubled for the department. 26% increase, I think, in the last year alone. But I think you'd be really hard pressed to find a veteran anywhere who would say that they think that services are twice as good or twice as fast in that period of time. In fact, I don't think I'd have to bet. We can actually look at your departmental plans because they contain some metrics. A bit subjective, but they're metrics nonetheless. And in those reports, on just about every measure, veterans report lower satisfaction in terms of a number of different areas that your department provides. And it seems as though what your government's response has been is to push back the timeline to achieve your targets. So you've pushed back most of them in this year's plan from March of 2025 to March of 2027. I guess the question I'd have to you is, if you're not achieving success, even by your own measures, wouldn't it make more sense to change what you're doing rather than just make veterans wait longer for better results?
I can appreciate that waiting for benefits is incredibly frustrating for veterans. Many of them have started their period of waiting perhaps long before their application was submitted. You referenced the fact that funding has gone up, and so too has the number of veterans coming forward looking for supports. And we have continued to deliver services for all of those veterans. Whether one veteran or 10,000 comes forward, we will ensure and deliver supports for every one of them that is eligible.
I guess the challenge is, veterans themselves in your own metrics are reporting like that their satisfaction in the quality of service they're getting from VAC, their adjustment to post-service life, to the quality of programs they're receiving from VAC. All of those things they're showing that they're finding less satisfaction in those things. Yet, bigger budget, less results. So, I mean, you're a fairly new minister. Can you tell us what you've identified that you think isn't working right now and what you're going to do to fix it? Specific items that you think aren't working right now and specific suggestions on what you'll do to fix them.
I will counter your assessment of things that are not working.
That's not my assessment.
Excuse
That's
me,
your
Mr.
own- that's
Richard,
your
I
own
will have
assessment
to
from your Department
interrupt
of
you. I
Employment,
was
actually.
to allow the minister to answer. It's up to you. We can hear her comments,
yeah.
or you can interrupt her again. It's up to you. Minister, I will allow you to end your conversation, and then we'll move on to our next round. Please,
So-
Minister.
I disagree with saying that they're not working. With that said, there are actionable steps that we are taking to improve the process, including redesigning the disability benefit application form so that we are making it more inclusive and clearer, the questions, simplifying and standardizing the medical questionnaire to make completion of the forms easier and quicker, and incorporating technology to support decision-making so that our decision makers can be focused on that and be supported with summarized information that can then help them to spend time engaging on the decision-making.
Thank you, Minister. I just want to remind all members here that the Minister is here to answer questions. If we want to play monologue, I'm fine with that, but I would urge each of you, out of respect, to allow the Minister the time to answer the questions as being asked. Madame Auguste, pour 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Minister, I would like to understand your medium and long-term vision. What are your priorities beyond immediate management in your department for veterans?
Merci pour votre...
Thank you for your question. I will answer in English, but I'm still learning French.
Question about the priorities. I spoke to 3 of my priorities right now in my opening statement as it related to ensuring that we are making the benefit system more accessible and ensuring the delivery and access to them. And in my response to MP Richards, I spoke to some of the steps that we're taking that are tangible to that. As I also referenced, we see an increasing number of veterans coming forward to access benefits. And so we need to make sure that we are able to respond to that increasing numbers with services and systems to be able to welcome all of them and make sure they've got access to the supports. So I want to make sure we're continuing to move forward. And is there the opportunity to improve user experiences? Always. There should always be a growth opportunity. So I embrace that. Secondly, I am looking to advance that National Veterans Employment Strategy. We know that the individuals that are releasing are incredibly skilled. And we know that there's great community that also comes from our employment, from the neighborhoods that we live in. And I want to make sure that we're supporting all veterans with that type of community. So my hope is that we can build on this program, roll it out, and then in time, long term, we continue to build it. And that the skills transition that we've identified, or skills translation, becomes a model that can be replicated throughout other areas as well. And then thirdly, the conversations I've had out in communities about the modern veteran for many people is new. And I hope that we can reframe that conversation. I hope that we can have conversations more daily about recognizing veterans and the fantastic contributions that they've made to our country and that they continue to make to our communities.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, vous avez un peu touché.
Thank you. You've touched on some of the bureaucratic barriers for veterans and their families when it comes to accessing.
Problem with translation?
Yeah. Yeah, oui, yeah, pas de problème.
Okay.
Donc, vous avez parlé.
You talked about some bureaucratic barriers for veterans and their families when it comes to accessing the services and benefits they are entitled to. Could you tell us about the administrative formalities that you've tried to eliminate and the logic behind streamlining these processes?
Certainly. Some of the feedback that we have received is that the forms can feel challenging, they can feel confusing, they can create barriers to completion. So we are going back, we're reworking the forms with simpler language, and we are trying to reduce those barriers so that that doesn't become an additional challenge or barrier to a veteran having access to the services and funds that they need. We, and I'm sure we may talk about it again later, but with regards to mental health, rather than having individuals wait for a claim to be processed, we've made access to mental health available immediately. Those are two examples.
Parfait. En parlant de
Talking about mental health, as you know, we are now looking into suicide and suicide prevention to better understand what is happening and to find out whether support services are available. Is there something you'd like to add in light of this study underway concerning suicide?
First, I would like to acknowledge and say thank you to the ACVA committee for hearing testimony and conducting a study on this very important topic, and acknowledge all of the individuals that are participating as witnesses and sharing their personal stories. It's a challenging topic, it's an emotional topic, and my appreciation goes to those that are sharing. We need to continue investing in mental health supports for our veterans for suicide prevention. We acknowledge the impact of what the veterans are feeling, but we also acknowledge that for family members, including spouses, children, and caregivers, this, again, much like service, is game-changing, or is life-changing, sorry. And we need to make sure that we are helping and giving supports to veterans before we get to this point. And again, I acknowledge the importance of this topic, and my thank you for undertaking a study on it.
We have like 10 seconds, so I will respectfully just move on. I apologize. Madame Gaudreau pour 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon once again. We have the very essence of what services to veterans could be all about. I had a colleague who took to heart the issues. Unfortunately, some issues are still very present. It's been 5 months since Madam Minister has been in her position, and we've been wondering what the mandate letter is. It's true that it wasn't a specific mandate letter, but a general one. So I went to the website of Veterans Affairs, and the mandate is very broad. With the platform that I consulted, I have a simple question. Through these commitments that are written down, what is the priority? What is your priority? And what is the level of progress towards attaining those commitments?
Merci pour votre question.
Thank you for your question.
En anglais, and j'ai traduit en français.
I will answer in English.
You mentioned the mandate letter and how that connects to Veterans Affairs. So within the mandate letter, there was 7 key missions. Of those, we've identified that 3 of them align with Veterans Affairs, that the engagement of Veterans Affairs aligns with 3 of those. So I'll speak to all 3 if possible. The first is, one of the topics is specific to housing. And so that connects with the Veterans Homelessness Strategy or program that has been undertaken, that we are making progress with, and connecting veterans so that we don't have a homeless veteran. I've had the opportunity to be engaged with some of the housing developments that have benefited from that funding to support them. And I've connected with some of the veterans specifically who have gone into their transitional housing through the program in Kingston, the Homes for Heroes there. And I met a couple of veterans that went through that program that had funding from that strategy, and they are now into permanent homes because of what was possible through the transitional housing. We are also funding a number of programs through this that includes housing, but it includes the wraparound supports that are necessary with the housing to address their needs. And again, I've had the opportunity to meet with a few of the funding recipients to talk with the veterans about how key that is related to them. So that is specific to the housing mission. Secondly, there is a mission to increase government efficiency, or as some put it, reduce red tape. This goes back to some of the steps that we are undertaking as a department to make it easier for veterans. We want to make sure that veterans are able to get the supports they need. We want to make the processes easier, reduce redundancy, and focus on that experience. And then thirdly, we talk about building and protecting Canada. Well, that comes back to investments that we are making in CAF and in service members who are protecting Canada. And we know that when an individual enters CAF, we have a commitment to take care of them for the long term, for their life. And that's where Veterans Affairs supports that. So as we're making investments in CAF and supporting new members joining, we also have a responsibility to be taking steps to prepare to engage with them for the long term and be here to support them.
Par tout respect, Madame la Présidente, comme il y a beaucoup de gens.
Since there are many people listening to us and watching us, of these three priorities, at this time, we are right here, right now. We need to understand the real picture of the situation and see the progress made. I want to trust you so that when I meet veterans, they all say the same thing. They don't believe the promises that are being made. For example, the adoption of my VAC account. Many people don't use it. How can someone who have mental health issues access their file or their account? So how can we give hope to people who dared to serve us? It's very important here for us in the committee to see the progress being made. If there's no progress, there's a problem. Madam Chair, I expect that we be given the picture of the situation and the path forward. We would like to know the most essential priorities. I know that my time is up, but I'll come back later on. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
So this will conclude notre première tour.
That's the end of our first round. We'll now move on to the second round of questions. Mr. Richards, 5 minutes.
Thanks. Minister, how many, including the Women's Veterans Council, how many ministerial advisory groups do you have advising you?
We have 6 advisory groups. We have the Women's Veterans Council. I believe there's one other departmental one, and I would turn to my officials to add and to clarify that.
Okay, that's fine. We'll have some time with them in the next hour. Can you tell me how many of them you've sat down and met with personally?
I have met with all of the advisory. I have met with the chairs of all of the advisory committees, and I have met with the Women's Veterans Council.
Okay.
And I've met with a number of the other stakeholders and advisors, including the Ombudsman and a number of stakeholders that represent veterans across the country.
And how often do you plan to meet with those advisory groups?
My plan is to meet with them on a consistent basis, but I do not have a set schedule per se.
Okay. We had a witness here 2 weeks ago that indicated that on the Women's Veterans Council, that indicated that she felt like there was absolutely no access to you as the minister, and went on to kind of, well, she didn't kind of say, she went on to say that she felt like they were just treated as a prop rather than something that is actually genuinely designed to provide advice, and also that everything seems to be filtered through the department. What would you say to that, and what would you do to try to improve that?
I first off, I thank Captain Le Soleil for their service and for their participation in the Women's Veterans Council. I believe that is the witness you're referring to, and I had the opportunity to watch their testimony. And I thank all of the members of the Women's Veterans Council specifically, and all of the advisory groups for participating and volunteering their time to be a part of this. I appreciate the value that the women bring specifically from the Women's Veterans Council to informing public policy and sharing their experiences. And I've heard and I appreciate the captain's feedback specifically about the Women's Veterans Council and the request for more clarity on a mandate.
I suspect that probably part of this comes down to, I think Madame Gaudreau was kind of alluding to this too, is that, although you may spend some time with them, you may hear what they're saying, they don't really feel listened to because nothing changes, because there's no results that come from it. It goes back to some of the questions I was asking earlier, like there doesn't seem to be results. Like we come up with a strategy and then you can't even tell us whether there was really results out of it. And I think that's probably where veterans feel like they're not listened to. Like they might physically be in a room, but they don't feel like they were actually listened to and that their suggestions were taken into account. And so I guess that's really where I think there needs to be some improvement. And I'll just turn to an example of that, and that's the construction of the monument to the mission in Afghanistan. It's kind of been on the books for a long time now. Over 2 years ago, there was sort of a design that was announced, but no construction. And in your annual report, it says, and I quote, "The construction of the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan is a priority for the department." And I think veterans see things like that, and they say, if that's how you treat your so-called priorities, how can I ever expect to get any results? Tell us where that monument's at in terms of its construction. Tell us why veterans should believe that when you say things are going to be better, they will be better when your answer, which I know will be, there is no construction happening on that monument. Why should veterans believe what they're hearing? Why should they expect better results?
So that monument is incredibly important as a symbol of reflection and commemoration to recognize all those who served and their families. We took in feedback from thousands of veterans about how they wish to be acknowledged for their contributions, and progress is being made. And to give you more specific updates, I would turn to one of my officials to be able to share those details.
We will look at the officials maybe detail in the round two, Minister. With your permission, I will invite Mr. Clark for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, very much for being here, and the officials here as well. Minister, one of the things you said in your opening statement that really stood out to me is the fact that the average age of release of a veteran now is 34. That certainly is a lot different than the conventional definition that we have in our minds of a veteran, and I think it presents both challenges and opportunities as well for the department, which you've touched on. So if we think that the average veteran is coming out at the age of 34, that means they have decades of employment service, hopefully, going forward. And you touched on in an earlier round the National Veterans Employment Strategy. And I'm just wondering if you can talk a bit about that, the goals, what you're trying to achieve through it, and how the department is working with employers in both the public and the private sector to make sure that those veterans, many of whom, as we say, are in their early to mid-30s, are being supported as they move through the rest of their life.
Certainly, and thank you very much for the question. The Veterans Employment Strategy is an opportunity to connect veterans with their incredible skills with the private sector, because right now there is a disconnect. So something that is an incredible skill, such as project management, which is phrasing that lands very much in the private sector, is not necessarily that something a veteran is going to acknowledge as their list of skill sets, because you may not see that on a job description in the CAF. So part of the process of this strategy is to create that skills translation. And we've identified over 100 roles within the CAF that could be then translated over to skills for the private sector to make those connections. I'll give you a very tangible example. As an entrepreneur, as someone who hired employees all the time, very seldom would I put on a job description, my expectation or that one of the skills I'm looking for is for you to show up on time. When you're serving in the forces or in CAF, punctuality is essential. In fact, many have said, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. So as an employer, that's a valuable skill. That's a valuable asset to me to hire someone with that dedication to punctuality that will not necessarily be something they put on their resume. But yet, if I know that that is a core value of someone coming from a service background, then I'm going to see that and recognize it. Secondly, I mentioned the fact that I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is an incredible opportunity for a wonderful life, to support a family, to embrace creativity, to pursue your dreams. As a veteran, a lot of the skills that I used as an entrepreneur, whether it was working with budgets, planning resources, acquiring supplies, again, going back to project management, a lot of those items are the same skills that I was using as an entrepreneur. But I don't know that most veterans release from CAF thinking, I could start my own business. I've got the skills to do it. Because some of them have told me, I don't have a business background, so how do I start a business? But yet, those skills that you've got, and there's this opportunity for us to work with veterans to help them see the skills that they have and to expand the possibilities of what they could do with it. As I said in my opening remarks, my goal is to connect them with the career that they want for going forward and not feel that they have limited options or opportunities. So as we can move this forward, these are some of the ways that we can make those connections. Part of the engagements as I've been out in communities across the country, engaging with veterans, engaging with current service members, has also been engaging with businesses and talking with them and hearing where some of their needs are. I recently spoke with one that has an incredible need for individuals to work on airplane engines as airplane engine mechanics. I can't remember the exact acronym right now. When I mentioned to them that there's 7,200 individuals releasing from the CAF right now, and some of those individuals are going to have some of those skills that they're looking for, it was something they had never considered. They'd never considered the opportunity to make that connection that the workforce they're looking for could already be trained. Perhaps we need to add a few skill-specific courses to add a few skills to their overall offering, but they could be ready to go in a much quicker turnaround than somebody who's just entering an education system.
Thank you very, very much. This would complete our 5 minutes. Madame Gaudreau, pour 2 minutes et demie.
Madame Gaudreau, 2.5 minutes, please. Madam Chair, I'm trying to speak calmly. There's interpretation. It's just 2.5 minutes. I'll try to take my time. I'll also like to call on Madam Minister to take the same time to answer my questions. I only have 2 minutes. Over the past 5 months, how many times have you met members of the Women's Veterans Advisory Council of your cabinet?
So I've met with the entire council once, but I have met with members of the council in other engagements, and I don't know specifically how many times, but I have had other engagements with them.
Parce que dans la plateforme, vous assurez.
On the platform, their experiences as women's veterans, documents, services offered. So I imagine that is a meeting that will take place regularly. When can we expect, but I must say, Madam Chair, there are 2 people here that are expecting apologies and also want to understand details of the famous monument on the 417. If you want to meet them later, they are here. The highway heroes. We have to understand the post-traumatic context, especially when we want to help the next generation of veterans. And then there are all sorts of barriers in the processes. We need to know what the situation is, because we are talking about employment, employability, but there are people living in tents, people with serious mental health problems, people who, once they leave the service, are abandoned because sometimes physicians think that that situation is difficult to handle. They do not understand the context. So when can we truly focus on this specific culture that needs to be respected and honored? Is this a priority for you for the next coming months?
Minister,
Okay. I heard a few different things, but I believe what I heard was how are we going to focus specifically on meeting the needs that we're hearing from women's veterans? Am I correct in that? Okay. So the Invisible No More report was undertaken as one step in addressing 42 recommendations that could be undertaken to meet the needs of this specific group or these specific veterans, let me clarify. By the end of this year, all of the actions will either be implemented or commenced, and we have more work to do, and we can follow up at another time with more details.
thank you very much. I will Mr. Viersen for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to the witnesses for being here. The Minister, you've achieved more than your 2 predecessors in the fact that you're here. Their 2 predecessors never actually made it to our committee, so I thank you for being here today. I noted at the top, I didn't realize this, that you're also the Associate Minister for National Defense. Appreciate that as well. We've got reports in the media around the chaplains, and we've had this problem in the past as well, that the chaplains are being given directives that in their capacity as Canadian Armed Forces chaplains, that they're not allowed to pray or participate as in their particular religious faith in Remembrance Day services. Can you confirm or deny or explain where these reports are coming from?
As you mentioned, I am still relatively new in the role, so I haven't gone through a season of Remembrance Remembrance Day activities yet. We are just heading into that part of it. So with that said, I would turn to my officials who have been involved in that to perhaps speak to that.
be able to hear from them in the next hour. So thanks. I'll turn my time over to my colleague, Mrs. Wagenthal.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here today. Minister, Veterans Affairs continues to struggle to serve veterans in a timely manner. We know that. In 2021, VAC made the arbitrary decision to move the provision of medical, psychosocial, and vocational rehabilitation out of the day-to-day operations of Veterans Affairs to a third-party provider, actually an international and national contractor to administer. Namely, it's called Partners in Canadian Veterans Rehabilitation Services, PCVRS. Right. So on June 9th, 2021, they were awarded $560 million for a 5-year contract, which has been increased to $572,751,466 with a contract end date of December 31st, 2026. So that's about an increase of a half year on the contract and $13 million. More than 3 years later, the November 2024 overview of your mandate letter states all commitments are underway on track, except for one. Wait times. Some challenges or delays exist, and you recognize some challenges in meeting its target of achieving service standards over a 12-month period. And while processing times have improved overall, it actually states a growing number of applications are exceeding the 16-week standard, giving reasons, one very important one, that challenges are happening with retaining temporary employees because the funding's ending in 2026, so I'm assuming people are thinking I'm not going to have a job and perhaps they're moving on. So it appears that in 4 years, engaging PCVRS has not improved outcomes, and VAC's internal need for internal decision makers, it says, has not diminished. So I'm a little confused about the lengths we went to move everything out of VAC's day-to-day, and we're not getting the improvements that I would think we would have by now. So I'm wondering, how often do you meet or do you plan to meet with LifeMark or WCG International to brief you and senior officials specifically on the progress of that program to see where those shortfalls are, and also with, needing the departmental employees? Will you meet regularly with those two groups? And what specifically are the departmental employees, the decision makers, doing that are in VAC that impact PCVRS? Do you understand my question? It sounds a little convoluted to myself. But the question is basically, will you be meeting with them to see what's happening here? We're not making the improvements that I think we should be seeing for over almost $600 million and services by international companies that this is what they do. So why are we still struggling so much, and will you be in touch regularly with them to see how we can make things better?
Minister, you have just to answer the question briefly, please.
Okay. So I will start and then to answer, and then you may wish to follow up with the officials to answer more parts of the question. So as we've talked about, we want to ensure that veterans are getting the best care possible, and we know this is a large country to service. So by connecting and moving into the service contract, we were able to increase the number of service providers that were available overall to 12,000 individuals, or 12,000 service providers to provide services for our veterans. And we are continually reviewing the process. In terms of some of the more specifics, I will let the department officials answer those for you.
Thank you very much. For, I do believe, last 5 minutes, Mrs. Ertl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. Thank you for being here today, and all of the officials. The topic of veterans homelessness is very important to my riding. There is a former armory in Amherst, Nova Scotia, that I and the community are hopeful can be turned into veterans housing. And I'd very much look forward to having further discussions with you about this topic, as I will be bringing forward a private member's motion, or I brought it forward. It'll be debated later this fall, and the motion deals with federal surplus buildings. So my question to you is, it was a question earlier about homelessness, but didn't really address it. Would you outline to the committee, please, your perspective on the importance of the Veterans Homelessness Program?
Certainly, and thank you for the Question. As you mentioned, we spoke a little bit about housing. The number one priority is to ensure that no veteran is facing homelessness. And we know that homelessness is a complex and spans a variety of different circumstances across this country. So, with that said, we are working in conjunction with the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure to improve housing for veterans and for families. The Veterans Homelessness Program pilot is in its second year, and the learnings from year one are improving the program, and we're strengthening results based on the results that have come from this first year. We've made progress, and there's more to do. Veterans Affairs Canada recognizes that we need to have both short-term transitional housing and long-term housing or long-term supportive housing to meet the needs of our veterans. And by strengthening partnerships with community organizations and engaging veterans and their families, we're going to ensure that we're bringing those pieces together. I had the opportunity to, again, meet another one of our veterans that's actually at one of the veteran housing units here in Ottawa recently. He was a more senior veteran who, prior to moving into Veteran House, was living on the street. He is now has a permanent home, and he welcomed me into his home, and he took great pride in touring his home with me to share the experience. Veterans House is something that was possible because of the investment from one of the programs through the Veterans Homelessness Program. And this is an individual, this has changed his life. I also had the opportunity to meet with another veteran this summer while I was in Kingston. They were an individual that had released while dealing with some long-term ongoing substance challenges. They were able to go into the transitional housing that Homes for Heroes had and was able to get things stabilized for themselves, to be able to still engage with their children in a safe environment. That individual has now gone on to be in permanent housing with her children living with her. And in the week following the day I met her, she was also going to be becoming the guardian for her nephew who was in need of care. So this was an individual where that investment in housing and in supportive housing with wraparound supports was actually able to change the trajectory of the path she was going at that moment. And that was really a really poignant moment for me, because that is the tangible impact. We talk about programs, we talk about our briefing papers, we talk about things that are intangible. But when we connect with the veteran who's had this experience is what brings it to life and is able to say, this is the difference that we're making by making these investments. I hope that kind of answers the question.
30 seconds. Thank you. It does. Thank you very much. You've been asked a lot of questions today about meetings with stakeholders and advisory groups, and I would like to just give you an opportunity if there's anything else you'd like to add or clarify around plans for further meetings.
Thank you. The engagement with veterans, each veteran is going to have a unique experience, a unique story, because they're a unique individual. And the most important thing is that we are trying to do our best for every veteran out there. We want to make sure they have the care and the support and the service they need. That comes from hearing the feedback of their individual experiences, because that's what can inform the opportunities for growth. As I said, I believe that opportunities for growth are always possible. And as we continue to invest in our veterans, that is one way that we can do that. So I will be continuing to meet with veterans.
Thank you very much, Minister McKnight, for joining the Veterans Affairs Committee this afternoon. So, colleagues, we will be suspending for a few minutes to allow the minister to depart. And once the committee resumes, we will continue our rounds of questions with our department officials. Merci. Donc, nous allons commencer.
We shall start with our second round. Do we allow people speak for 5 minutes, or we want to go straight to questions? Mr. Richards, you have 6 minutes.
We're doing that dance where we can't decide who's going to turn the mic on. We got it done, though. So I guess let me start with this. And I don't know if Mr. Harris or I'm not sure, whoever is you feel is appropriate to answer. So the span of the Liberal government, been about a decade almost now. There's been 9 different ministers of Veterans Affairs. So that's, obviously averages out to just in the neighborhood of about a new minister every year. Some of them have been, just months, and I think in one case even just weeks kind of thing. So I'm wondering from a departmental perspective, having unstable leadership like that where there's constantly change, I would think that can't really be good for the department and the direction that's needed in order to better serve veterans. So can you maybe elaborate for us on what difficulties that constant leadership changes at the ministerial level would have on the department and on your operations?
Thank you so much for the question. Really appreciate that. Madam Chair, I would say that certainly veterans deserve stability and consistency in the benefits that they are provided. They expect a level of coherence with respect to their services. One of the things that we're really proud of at Veterans are the values that we take very much to heart with respect to service to our veterans and their families. Those are values that endure over the course of leadership changes and form part of the business that we do and the hardworking public servants that deliver those each day.
Okay, and I appreciate it's not it's almost an unfair question to ask, but it's an important one, right? Like when you have that constant change in leadership, it can be difficult in any organization, and I appreciate that you do your best to try and endure through those things, and there's certain principles and values and all that, but there must be some challenges that go along with it. So what sorts of challenges do you see from that constant leadership change?
We're certainly very much focused on continuing to deliver the services and benefits that our veterans are depending upon us for. Those things are grounded very much in the culture and the practices and policies of Veterans Affairs. And we have fortunate to have consistent leadership and staff who are very familiar with and experienced with those services and benefits and are able to deliver those in a consistent fashion in a way that is stable and consistent for veterans.
Okay, no, that's fine. I guess it almost makes it sound as though the minister almost isn't important to the operation of the department, and that would also concern me. If the ministers in this government really don't run anything at all, that's also a problem. But let me turn to something else that I wanted to ask about as well. We had the Veterans Transition Network here as part of the study we're on. It was just a couple of weeks ago. And they talked about having to use the charitable donations that they receive to pay for the attendance of clients who would be VAC eligible to do their group counseling programs, for example, because VAC cannot or will not process the funding in time. And then what ends up happening, we hear this from a number of different service providers, that there ends up being, because they don't want to turn them away, obviously. But then what happens is they get into the program for a while, and then now VAC won't pay because they've been already involved in the program for some time. We've also heard about from some providers that there's been about a 60% decrease in the rate of funding approvals as a result of that, just because there's no change to the number of clients that they're serving that are VAC eligible, but they're seeing less and less are being covered by VAC because of, I think, delays is really the challenge. So I guess the question would be, what can you do? What are you doing to try and increase access to those specialized mental health services, specifically for veterans that are at risk of suicide. Because it's obviously concerning when someone's VAC eligible, but, organizations are having to use, charitable donations that they could have used for other things when they shouldn't have to.
That's great. Thank you so much for the question. I'm going to turn to my colleagues to respond to that. But before I do want to just clarify the fact that the minister has very clearly established priorities for Veterans Affairs, as she said in her opening remarks. It is around veterans employment, it is around commemorating modern veterans, and it is around making sure that we're delivering consistent and effective service. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague.
Parfait, merci. Sorry. Thanks very much. We appreciate the work of Mr. Thorne and the Veterans Transition Network, along with a number of other organizations that help to support veterans. We work to help pay for those veterans when they go into eligible programs, which includes the ones that are offered by Veterans Transition Network and others. There are a large number of programs across the country that are all trying to help and support veterans. We want to be able to help them in ones that are appropriate for them, that help suit their well-being needs and their rehabilitation objectives. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Richard, your 6 minutes are over. We will be now going next one. We'll get back. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Mr. Casey for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the first question is for Mr. Harris. Mr. Richards asked the minister about the employment strategy and left the impression that there was only one thing that mattered on the employment strategy, and that's the number of jobs that are a result of it. How do you measure success in connection with the employment strategy, and can you speak to it in a little further detail?
There's a number of ways that we want to measure success for the employment strategy. Ultimately, employment is certainly one of them. We have a number of individuals leaving the Canadian Armed Forces on an annual basis, including reservists who are already employed in one way, shape, or form. Employment strategy for us is about supporting about 4 different pillars. One is one for the veterans, making sure that they're understanding their own skills, that they can gain additional skills through training, through vocational rehabilitation, through other means. Helping employers to understand both where they can find veterans and help to employ them, how to basically accommodate them and help to support them when they come into their employment and into their companies. Helping the public service to recruit veterans. Many veterans who leave the Canadian Armed Forces want to continue to serve at public service levels, be that at the federal level, provincial, municipal, in other ways as well, and helping organizations to be able to effectively train and support veterans as well, third-party organizations that may be able to assist them in certain ways. The unemployment rate for veterans is actually lower than the unemployment rate for Canadians as a whole. So that doesn't mean that there isn't value to add in the employment space. Underemployment can certainly be an issue for veterans and other reasons. And so we're doing that. I would give you an example of success for us. We have an online career webinars that we do. Just next week, we're doing one. 1,000 veterans have signed up to be part of the career webinar next week, including 50 employers coming to recruit them. So these are things that we can do to help connect throughout the delivery of the employment strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I think this one's for you, Mr. Freeman. Mr. Richards was looking for some specific numbers with respect to the homeless strategy. I think that's under your bailiwick. Can you give us some more detail around the homeless strategy and the facts and figures associated with it?
Certainly. And so thank you so much, Madam Chair, for that question. And I would highlight a couple of things. First and foremost, over 1,400 veterans have been assisted through the Veterans Homelessness Program since its inception in 2023. And so that's a huge measure of success. And of course, this is a program that saw in 2023 a veteran homelessness estimate of just a little over 2,000 veterans who needed some supports and services over the course of a year with respect to being homeless or at risk of being homeless. And today that number estimated on 2024 numbers is decreased to just a little shy of 1,800. And so very positive in that particular regard that the program is having the impact. I would say, colleagues, that the measure of success on this is that there are 34 organizations that are in the communities across the country, coast to coast, who are part of the Veterans Homelessness Program, who are outreaching veterans. And you heard the minister speak of some of her personal interactions over the course of the last number of months in that regard. And this has certainly given us the opportunity to collect better data on understanding this particular problem as we go forward. How we can help more veterans. I mentioned 1,400, a little over 1,400 have been helped and assisted, and that includes, Madam Chair, both wraparound support services, so those services that veterans need in order to be stable, and at the same time assisting veterans to find long-term housing, transitional housing, et cetera. And so that program is being certainly impacting veterans positively coast to coast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Over to you, Mr. Tessier. We heard in the first round of questions that the budget at Veterans Affairs has doubled in the last 10 years, and somehow that was a bad thing because there are some veterans that are unhappy with how those dollars are spent. My understanding is that the distribution of the funds that are spent by Veterans Affairs, 90% of them flow straight through to the veterans. So could you offer some comments with respect to the significance of the growth in the veterans budget from the time we came into power?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. The budget for Veterans Affairs in 2015-16 was approximately $3.7 billion. The budget forecasted for this fiscal year is $7.8 billion. The current percentage of department's budget funds towards veterans programs, benefits, and services is 94%. And the nature of the programs for veterans and their families is quasi-stat in nature. What that means is as the demand increases, if more veterans and their families come forward, that funding is available throughout the year for us to adjust our budgets to ensure that all veterans are served.
So the amount of money spent by the Department of Veterans Affairs has increased significantly in the last 10 years, and 94% of it has been paid out to veterans. Is that what I'm to understand?
That's correct.
Thank you. Anytime. Thank you, everyone. I very much appreciate you being here.
Madame Gaudreau, pour 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Présidente.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question. I'll start with Mr. Harris. Are you satisfied with service delivery for our veterans?
Je pense la bonne réponse.
The good answer is that we can always do better. Out of 10, what is your level of satisfaction? 2 being unsatisfactory and 8 being very good. I think 8, well, being very good, I would say 5.5. We have good programs in place to support our veterans who need those services. We have systems in place as well. It's not perfect. We have to work harder to satisfy. But what do? Let's understand the situation. We say 80% is success, is good. 20%, what do? Is there a department that is being ignored? A while ago, I talked about the 2 ladies who have been expecting public apologies for years now. Imagine that I served. My face is on a monument 2 years, and I'm not yet dead. I think 2 years after, I need to hear something. Are there departments that are abandoned? There are people coming to my office every week telling me I'm not receiving any responses in French. I don't have any doctor to help me because it's too complicated. I have mental health problems. What is happening? I have the impression that it's as if we were living in another world where collectively we need to think about respect, the respect and honor we owe those people. We are not even equipped. How are we going to increase forces? There are people here who are sitting on councils for veterans to help change the situation. And Madam Chair, they come here and then they are criticized afterwards. And I hear all this, and I wonder what is missing for you to truly take action. I would like to hear you all speak. I have about 4 minutes left. I cannot believe what I'm hearing every week in my office. What I can say is that my team is working very hard day after day to help everyone, all veterans. They are standing up every day. There are those who are seen by everyone and those who are working behind the scenes. It's very difficult, but they continue working. They are trying to engage not only with families, friends, and others to help them and to have opportunities to work to help them using the various programs we have that can assist them. As for the other things, I think there are other comments. But talking about service delivery, we are there to support veterans, and it's difficult. Every day, I also speak with veterans who have difficulty, and the programs and services are not always appropriate. It's not easy. We are working hard for everyone, not only for the most obvious or easy cases. I can assure you that people working in my domain, in my department, are working very hard to support them. Madam Chair, I am not criticizing the quality of services delivered. When we have 10 fingers, 2 arms, 1 head, at some point, we must speak the truth. If it's really important and we owe these people respect, then we should act appropriately, be it through funding. You cannot ask a minister 5 months after to expect her to know everything. Well, you've been there maybe for 2, 5, 10 years. It's cyclical. So is there some compassion in the department that makes us that causes us to be satisfied with a 7.5% success rate out of 10? I'm being emotional because every time people are not only traumatized, but we are re-traumatizing them because they have been abandoned for a long time. They come and see us and they tell us that the problems are accumulating. Is there a department that could help the forgotten? We are here to help you. We understand there's an emergency. We want to apply things. We want apologies. We want to admit that we were lacking in stringency. So how can we help? If there's someone else online who can answer. The real problem is that we're working hard to support everyone, and I understand your question. What else can we do? The reality is that every day we should try to help them. People who have the opportunity to improve their well-being. Sometimes it's in advance. Sometimes it's in hindsight. And that could be the case for 10 years. We will always work with them. Even if there are setbacks, we'll continue working hard to make progress. My team is working very hard to help all veterans. Thank you. Thank you very much. On that note, that brings an end to our first round. We'll move on to the second round of questions for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to get clarity on something. A growing number of applications are exceeding the 16-week standard was what was found in the status overview of the mandate letter in November of 2024. It also stated that it is critical that we receive a new funding decision as soon as possible to arrest the current level of attrition among temporary decision makers and to support ongoing efforts in leveraging new technologies. So this was an ask, and you indicated, Mr. Tessier, that in 2025, $7.8 billion was spent. Did that include taking care of this issue, or are we waiting until November budget to see some improvements in this area?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. In terms of the 7.8 billion includes forecasted funds for current resources.
Okay.
Not beyond April 2026.
So were any of those resources applied to this request to deal with the loss of Mr. Harris? Oh, that's all okay. That's all good. Testing 1, 2. Did you have something to say to that just briefly? I have one more question I would like to ask.
Those are applied to work on reducing wait times, including disability backlog. So absolutely.
So specifically in response to the need for more decision makers, I don't know what that means exactly. Maybe if I have time, I'll get an answer to that too. But the Prime Minister also instructed every department to find a cost savings of 7%. But we're saying here that 90% flows to the veterans. And the veterans are going, okay, where is this cut going to take place? And I'm wondering, does the department assist in determining where that could be done and cause the least impact in that process, because it has to be done by the summer?
Merci pour la question. I believe I'm going to turn to you, Pierre, and then to Mitch, or Mitch and then Pierre.
Madam Chair, thanks so much for the question. I'm happy to start, Deputy. And so, as you are pointing out, all departments have been or are part of that particular exercise that you're referencing, Madam Chair. And so Veterans Affairs, of course, is part of it as well. That is a process, though, that's in flight at the moment without decisions. So I'm not in a position to speak any broader to that, simply because I don't know the answers. But Veterans Affairs is part of it, like all of our other departments across government.
Briefly.
Just to be more precise in terms of where the exercise reductions are being put, it's definitely it's not in the the focus is really on the remainder, not on the 94%, right? It's really internal efficiencies.
This is a bit of a unique question. I'm very concerned about, I have a passion for the whole service dog program and how that could be making a huge difference in our veterans' lives. I know it's the Wild West out right there right now. We still don't have standards federally. We do need them. But at the same time, it's very clear, there is so much information that shows that this makes a huge difference in veterans' lives, to the point where they need far less pharmaceuticals and drugs to treat themselves, which cost this department a huge amount of money. So I would like to hear if the department is highly going to encourage our new minister to take this really seriously, and let's get this done.
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question.
To Mitch Freeman to respond to that, please.
Thanks so much, Madam Chair, for the question. And so I would highlight a couple of things. One, certainly Veterans Affairs is always looking for ways to benefit the veteran community. And as you state, Madam Chair, service dogs is a reoccurring theme in this particular item. And as you said, the Wild West a bit from a standards and applicability point of view. And so a couple of things. One, Veterans Affairs, of course, is taking it seriously to the point of funding some organizations through the Veterans Family Wellbeing Fund in order to progress their work on service dogs, particularly wounded warriors. They've done some tremendous work. And then in parallel, we're really closely monitoring the work that the US VA are doing. They have a program around training dogs by veterans. And so they invite veterans in. Yep.
Sorry, I totally hear you, and I affirm that. I would encourage you to look within Canada. If you need some suggestions, I can let you know where it is being done remarkably, being done credibly. They already have accreditation, and those dogs work with the veteran from the very beginning, and they do not cost the veteran anything. We have dogs that are being sold to veterans for $30,000 when that is not needed, when we have wonderful organizations in this country that are charitable and can do the work. So please look within. Saskatchewan's a good place to
I'm
look.
so sorry, Madame Wagenthal. I was listening to the conversation myself, so I will have to ask Madame Auguste pour 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. During the committee of the 9th of October, we heard Captain Helen talk about an incident at the Highway of Heroes. What measures were taken at the time, and what measures have been taken to make sure that the issue concerning impersonation of veteran identity be avoided? What assurances do we have that such a situation will not reoccur?
Merci pour la question. Je m'excuse.
I'm sorry. Just a few comments. Let me reassure you that the situation was regrettable.
Internally, a series of reviews to make sure that we've got the checks and balances set up so that when we are funding organizations, they are clear on their responsibilities and that we're executing oversight to ensure these kinds of errors don't happen with these funding arrangements. Amy, can you offer more, please?
Yes, of course. Thank you. I would just add to that as well that as part of our contribution agreements, we've added in additional clauses so that applicants and recipients understand their responsibilities. As well, on our website, we portray many stories of veterans, making sure that there is language available anywhere where personal information of veterans is contained. It will be clear that the appropriate privacy consents and processes need to be adhered to. As part of a funding package, recipients will also receive best practices in managing personal information, as well as where to go for fact-checking of historical information, whether that be Library and Archives Canada, the Department of History and Heritage, or Veterans Affairs Canada. So as the Deputy indicated, it is a very regrettable situation, and we look forward to working with those impacted individuals to find a positive resolution.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Lots of questions were asked about the Afghanistan monument, and I would like to give you the opportunity to clarify, because you have had, I don't think you've had the opportunity to say what has been done about the Afghanistan monument. I would like you to say something about that.
Excellent. Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question.
Are very interested and care deeply about recognizing our modern veterans and commemorating those individuals. We are working very closely. Okay. Thank you for that. With the updates, perhaps I'll turn right to Amy Mounier to talk about next steps on the Afghan monument.
Thank you very much. We're, as the Deputy mentioned, this is a very important file for us. We've been working closely with Heritage Canada and the National Capital Commission as we work with their architectural board to ensure the design is buildable and that we fully appreciate all of the necessary steps in the building process. I'm really happy to say that the National Capital Commission has granted us the authority to proceed with tendering. So that tendering process should begin in the next month or so. And we hope to have a contract in place in the early new year. And shortly after that, or as soon as the ground thaws, we would be keen to begin construction.
Merci beaucoup pour.
Thank you very much for the response. I would like to know at VAC, what measures have you taken to make sure that first-line decision makers have the skills and training required to work with clients in a thoughtful manner? I know we had an opportunity to organize our own training, so I would like to know what you've done at your level.
Confirmé.
There are a number of training sessions for people who work as first-line workers with veterans. There's a trauma-informed training course that is important. There's training on suicide. called Assist. There's training to help people respond when there's sexual trauma and also in other domains. So there's a wide range of training possibilities to make sure that people are well prepared to respond to requests or any information shared amongst veterans. All those who work as first-line responders are encouraged to take those training courses, as well as contractors who work with us. They are also required to take some of the trainings. Thank you very much. Madame Goudreau, 2.5 minutes. I have a question. We've talked a lot about veterans. I have not heard the minister talk about the RCMP. Your council handles veterans from the RCMP, and I didn't hear about that. Could you give us an update on the work that is being done for veterans from the RCMP? Be as specific as possible. What was done following recommendations in the 2020 Astarash report? For the benefit of RCMP veterans, they would really like to know what is going on. My next question, I believe we need to see you more often so that we can understand how far the process has gone, if there are any specific requests, because we are also here to help you. We don't understand your command positions best. We feel the spirit of our veterans, be they of the armed forces or the RCMP. So, Madam Chair, that would be very important. My last question. Do you listen to or read about what happens here in the committee? All the reports. I know you're very busy, but do you listen or follow what is happening in the committee? Thank you for the question. Madam Chair, I would like to address the last question. I do read, and I believe that my colleagues attentively read all reports that are produced by this committee.
The wonderful work that you do here in support of veterans. We use the material and rely on the reports and studies that you do very much to inform our work. Pour des autres questions, j'aimerais tourner vers mon collègue.
For the other questions, my colleague will answer. Unfortunately, I'm very sorry, Madame Goudreau. The preamble is sometimes too long, so I have to interrupt you, unfortunately.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the department for being here today. Just a little bit of commentary probably before I ask the question. Conservatives have been pushing the government to balance the budget for as long as this government has been around. We point out that a lack of balance of budget causes inflation. Inflation causes things like groceries to be more expensive. When groceries are more expensive, our veteran communities struggle, and so we need to then up the benefits. So we get into this vicious cycle. Over the last number of years, we've talked about the budget doubling. In some respects, that's just a reflection of the inflation. If services are going down and the budget is doubling, that's just purely a measure of inflation. Now, we've been pushing the government to rein that deficit spending in to bring inflation down. Now, it's interesting to me to just learn today that 94% of the department's budget goes to veteran benefits, and the government is seeking a 7% reduction in the funding or expenditure of the department, which then appears, if you just do the raw math of it, they're looking for an elimination of the department. if a little bit of a joke there, folks. So I imagine that's not what they're after. So how are we going to? The service dogs is one of the recommendations that's coming from our side of the table, pursuing reduction in drug usage or drug prescription across this sector. What are some of the other things that you're looking at due to try to meet this 7% target that's been set by the government?
Thanks so much for the question. Madam Chair, we certainly understand the affordability issues and the financial pressures that are facing veterans today. VAC has a number of supports in place to support veterans with respect to the increased cost of day-to-day living, including enhanced emergency support programs, expanded access to financial supports.
Going is more like, how is the department going to be reining in some of these expenses? It's going to take some unique thinking, I think, on some of these issues.
Thank you for the question. I wanted to assure Madam Chair, I wanted to assure the committee that we are also paying very close attention, given that 94% of our budget does in fact go to veterans, that we're paying very close attention to the way that we can support those veterans with the cost of living. With regard to the latter part of the question, I'm going to turn to Mitch to respond to that, please.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to highlight very much alive to the situation of affordability within the veteran community and the task that's at hand that's all departments have been asked to do. And I think, you're highlighting that it is an, kind of a interesting or requiring thinking out of the box. And as I said earlier, these are decisions that are in flight and in progress by government, and I do not have decisions or responses to get into any sense of specificity with this. And I look forward to government decisions as we move forward in that regard.
Can you maybe enlighten us as will the budget be the time where we get illumination onto some of these things? Is that what we're waiting for?
Well, thanks, Madam Chair, for the question. It is unclear to me where the decision processes will come in the following weeks or months. And so I'm not in a position to confirm that it would be or would not be.
This government has been in place now for several months. It's frustrating sitting here asking questions about what's happening around the 7% target. It's extremely frustrating to see that there has been no decisions made on this. I guess, back to you, Ms. McDowell, is there anything that you think I should know coming out of this meeting today around the 7% piece?
Thank you for the question. Madam Chair, what I would say in response to that question is that 94% of our budget does go directly to veterans. And as we heard my colleague Pierre talk about, Mr. Tessier talk about earlier today, whether it's one veteran or 10,000, the supports that those veterans need actually come financially. And we are awaiting the results of the phases of this review.
Thank you very much, Mr. Viersen. I would like to now ask Mr. Clark for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to go back to an issue that was raised earlier in the meeting, actually by Mr. Viersen, around the question around prayer at ceremonies. So I can only speak from my own personal experience, of course, but the last number of years, as a member of the provincial legislature in Nova Scotia, I've attended Remembrance Day ceremonies in Bedford, where I live, and there has always been a prayer component, a religious component from multiple faiths in most years. So I'm just wondering if, perhaps Mr. Harris, I'm not sure if this is a question for you, if you could just comment on that question, just so I think we get clarity on it, because it is an important point that was raised.
Understanding, Madam Chair, is much the same, is that there's no specific direction. The direction is actually one of people being allowed to reflect or pray in whatever way is suitable for them. And that I've had the same experience where whatever commemoration ceremony I've been at, there's been a component of reflection or prayer, and whoever's leading that offers that the crowd or the assembled masses there can can do that in whatever faith or to whatever perception they want to have, but that it is and has been a component of all the ceremonies certainly I've been with.
As I said, I would agree with that. I've been to ceremonies where we've had a priest, a rabbi, and an imam, and that's not the beginning of a joke. That's, you know, the reality of what we've seen. So I appreciate that clarity, and I just wanted to make that point because I think it's important. So as we've also touched on earlier in the committee here, in 2023, a contract a little over $500 million or so was awarded for administering the rehabilitation program through VAC, PCVRS. So I'm just wondering, again, perhaps this is Mr. Harris, but I'll let you guys stick handle it. What are the successes of that program, and what are the challenges of that program, and how are you working to address the challenges component of it in particular? Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you for the question. I know there was a question earlier around the rehabilitation contract and how it interplays with a different program that we have, disability benefits. Those two are different. And so there's one benefit that allows for individuals to receive compensation for illness or injury that they face as a result of their service. This program that you're referring to is actually a program that helps for rehabilitation supports. And that program is the contract that was referred to a little bit earlier. It has been a process of implementation and support. It provides medical, psychosocial, and vocational rehabilitation to veterans who require it for a barrier that they're facing to integration into civilian life. I'll give you two stats that I think are the most telling with respect to the success of the contract to date. So participants completing the rehabilitation program, which includes working through the contract provider of PCVRS, report an 82% improvement in functional capacity or overall health and well-being, and an 83% improvement in life satisfaction. In both of those cases, it's demonstrating that the program of rehabilitation is working for veterans, helping to make them better, helping to make them more independent in their ability to pursue their post-military choices and well-being. And I think that's the most important takeaway that I can offer with respect to the progress of the contract at this point.
Thank you. And those are obviously encouraging numbers, Mr. Harris. I assume there is some sort of survey or feedback mechanism for veterans, and that's where those numbers are coming from. And do you have how many responses would you have roughly? Do you have any idea of that?
Let me just see here. I know we've had about 10,000 people who've gone through the program to its completion, to its conclusion at this point in time. We have about 350, 400 new veterans who come into the rehabilitation program every month. And there's always somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10,000 veterans who are participating at any given time. So over the course of the time since the program started, about 10,000. I can't tell you that every single one has answered the survey as part of this, but that is, yes, where it comes from in terms of data gained from surveys of individuals going through it.
Okay. And for the rehabilitation program, what is the average length of the program for veterans? Are we talking a period of months, a year or two? Like, what does that look like from a time perspective?
I would suggest that the average time of somebody in a rehabilitation program is about 2 years. It can vary for veterans depending on what their needs are, what their barriers might be, and how much support they might need from a rehabilitation program. On average, we would say usually about 2 years depending on the barriers they're facing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Harris, could I ask maybe that you share some of those stats with our committee? I think it would be appreciated. We appreciate those stats, being a person with number. So we are now at our last round, and just out of principle, and to allow also Madame Gaudreau to have the chance, we will have Mr. Richards for 3 minutes, Mrs. Ertl, and then Madame Gaudreau for 2.5. So Mr. Richards for 3 minutes.
Okay, I want to get back to where we were earlier, Mr. Harris, but before we do that real quick, I want to get this question in because I've only got 3 minutes. I don't know who it should be answering it, but whoever it is. We've got in 2027 the 110th anniversary of Vimy Ridge coming up, so we're just a little over a year away. I wonder if you can share with the committee what if any, plans your department has for commemoration of that event, and what if any work has been done on it to this point? Fairly quickly, I guess.
I'm going to turn that right over to Amy Mounier in the interest of time.
Thank you very much, and you are correct. We have a team that actually resides in France, taking care of the Vigny Monument as well as BH, Beaumont Hamel, excuse me. They are actively working with all of our partners in France, as well as with other countries, to build quite a series of activities that would take place in and around that time. We're also looking to include a companion piece here in Canada so that more Canadians can participate in those activities. We will come back as more and more of the details are refined.
Sure, and I guess I would just say this. I know that there's partners like the Vimy Foundation and others that are really wanting to know far in advance so they can be a part of these things as well. So just put that in your ear. So back to the issue we were talking about earlier, Mr. Harris. So let me just try and succinctly summarize it. So essentially, what these providers like Veterans Transition Network and others are finding is that VAC won't process the applications in time, so they get the client into their program, but then VAC won't process retroactively. So they end up stuck in this spot where they're paying through charitable money for things that should have been eligible through VAC. And that's obviously a problem. And I've had them report as much as 60% decrease in terms of the rate of funding approvals, pretty significant. And that requires a lot of charitable donations as a result to be used. There's got to be something we can do to fix that. Can you comment on that at all?
Well, Chair, I'd say the quick comment I'd offer is there is a pre-approval process for people who want to go and participate in a program, be it the Veteran Transition Network or any number of other programs that help support individuals. We want to make sure that happens as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Pardon me?
If I can just interrupt you on that, because obviously, we're not talking about a small-time organization here. This is a pretty major organization. If they can't figure out how to make this work, there's got to be an issue. So, is there something we can do to fix it?
I think it's about timing and intake to make sure that we get veterans who want to attend those kinds of programs, who will benefit from those kinds of programs, in quickly for the approvals that are required, so that places like the Veteran Transition Network aren't put in a position where they feel as though a veteran needs that immediate help, and yet it's not yet in time for approval. And you're quite right, we can't approve retroactively. We need to do the pre-authorization, so we need to make sure as part of a veterans rehabilitation program, their well-being plan, that those kinds of things are included earlier so we can approve them earlier and make sure that that places like Veterans Transition Network and many others can do their good work on their side.
It is many, right? That's the thing. So there's obviously something we need to do in that process. I appreciate that you're providing a suggestion, but I think it sure seems to me from the things I'm hearing is that there needs to be something done to streamline this for sure. So I really hope you'll take that back and give that some consideration. Maybe next time we can have a further conversation about it.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. For 3 minutes, Mrs. Ertl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this question is for Mr. Harris, but any of you can jump in. At committee recently, we heard from the Veteran Ombudsman, who, when asked by one of our colleagues who Canada should be looking to internationally as an example of leadership in working with and supporting veterans and their families, the Ombudsman replied that, in fact, Canada is the leader that others often come to. So I'm hoping you could elaborate on what this means, in that how does Canada compare to international counterparts, either in the services offered or the range of said services or the depth of benefits that veterans and the families have access to here in Canada?
Comparisons are very difficult because considerations exist in different countries. The example would be the United States Veterans Association, who provides all health care because they do not have a health care network in the U.S. We compare very favorably with organizations that deliver services to veterans in many international settings. We use certainly places like the Five Eyes to speak regularly about benefits and services that are available and experiences that people have in other areas. I do think that Canadian veteran benefits compare very favorably with those across the world. We speak regularly, all of my colleagues speak regularly with international counterparts to try and both share and learn where we can get better at providing benefits for veterans as well.
Sure. Certainly something to be proud of, though. Awesome. I still have 1 minute. Quickly then. The committee noted in its recent report on the transition from military to civilian life, the proportion of veterans experiencing difficulties during the transition went from 30 to 40% in the last decade. So I'm wondering what measures are planned to support the transition of veterans who are medically released.
So we support medically released veterans in many ways. We have direct ability to help support veterans who are transitioning, who are leaving from the Canadian Armed Forces to Veterans Affairs, to have benefits and services in place in time for their departure. In other instances, people leave the Canadian Armed Forces and may have difficulty with transition. That could be a mental health issue, a physical health issue. It could be an issue of belonging and a sense of purpose. That can come later as well. In any of those cases, veterans can come back to Veterans Affairs Canada for assistance at any time. It doesn't have to be during the release process, although we want to make sure through transition interviews and others that we can identify any challenges that they're facing immediately. But if they develop challenges after they've released from the Canadian Armed Forces, they can still come to us, and we've got lots of programs that we can help them with as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. Madame Gaudreau.
Oui, merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. There are many people watching us and wondering why all those deadlines. Whereas we know that when we talk about veterans, it's not a systemic approach. I hope that the culture makes it a priority. This means that we need to adapt our approaches. So I would like you to explain why the delays are a year and more. What is happening? Thank you for the question. I can explain. The process may be complicated. It may take time to find all the necessary documents, information from the physicians, documents from elsewhere. I think for delays for deadlines for more than 1 year have gone down over the past 3 years. So processes exist to help us accelerate processes. For service delivery, deadlines have reduced by 50% over the past few years. So we are making progress. We've not yet reached our targets, but we've made progress. So when you come back next time, I hope that there will be more progress to note. Do you attentively follow what is happening in the committee or read our reports? Yes, we do the two. We read the reports, we listen to the debates, always. That is something we follow closely. The recommendations are very important for us. We hope your global leadership will help all our veterans. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Madam Gaudreau. On that note, I would like to thank our witnesses for coming here. Let me take a moment to acknowledge that we have many guests in the room.
Guests that are with us. I cannot assume veterans. I could maybe think they are veterans. So for all our veterans who are with us during today's committee, thank you for your service to Canada. I really wanted to make sure that we say thank you to all of you. Before we adjourn, I just have one housekeeping note, and I have to make sure on the topic of the suicide prevention study. Last week, a study budget was prepared by the clerk and distributed to all our members of the committee. I need to seek the committee's approval to adopt this budget. So it is the will of the committee to adopt the budget for the study on suicide prevention among veterans. Thank you very much. Donc, sur ce, le comité soit-il ajourné?
Will the committee want to adjourn the meeting?